Jacob's ranch stretched further than the eye could see. Golden fields, strong oak fences, and a red barn that had stood for over 60 years. His grandfather had built it during tough times, and every corner carried memories of sweat and sacrifice. Before we begin today's story, if you enjoy our videos, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support means the world and helps us bring you more amazing HOA and emotional stories every week. Every morning, Jacob saddled up his horse, riding across the land as the sun rose over the hills. He'd stop by the creek where his father once taught him to fish and walk through the barn where his children's growth marks were carved into the wood. For Jacob, this wasn't just land. It was bloodline. It was freedom. It was the one place where he was his own man, where no outsider could tell him what to do. Or so he thought. Not far from Jacob's ranch, a shiny new subdivision had sprung up. Manicured lawns, identical houses, and a newly formed homeowners association, an HOA determined to improve the area by controlling everything in sight. At first, Jacob ignored their letters. They looked silly, demanding things like barn repaint required to neutral beige, livestock numbers exceed community guidelines, unauthorized fence height detected. Jacob laughed. Community guidelines? This ranch was here, long before their cookie-cutter houses. But the HOA wasn't joking. Each letter became more aggressive, threatening fines and enforcement. Jacob tossed them in the fire pit, thinking it would end there. He had no idea the HOA was planning something bigger. One chilly morning, Jacob grabbed his keys and headed for town. But when he reached the end of his driveway, he slammed the brakes. A tall, black iron fence now stretched across his property line. At its center, a massive locked gate with a shiny HOA sign bolted to the bars. Private access, HOA, members only. Jacob's jaw dropped. This wasn't a flimsy barrier. It was industrial strength, with concrete posts dug deep into the ground. Someone had worked through the night to install it. His driveway, his only direct road, was sealed off without warning. Jacob stepped out of his truck, kicked the gate hard, and muttered, "On my land? Not a chance." Storming into the HOA office, Jacob found Karen, the infamous HOA president. She sat behind a polished desk, sipping her coffee with a smug smile. Jacob slammed his fist on her desk. "You've got until sundown to get that fence off my property," Karen smirked. "Oh, Jacob, this isn't your decision anymore. That road passes into our community. If you want access, you'll need to join the HOA and pay your dues. No membership, no entry." Her tone was sharp, dripping with arrogance. The other board members chuckled, as if they had finally tamed the stubborn rancher. Jacob glared at her, his blood boiling, but instead of shouting back, he simply said, "You've made the worst mistake of your life." That night, Jacob couldn't sleep. He paced across his wooden floorboards, the sound of his boots echoing in the quiet house. He thought of his grandfather, who fought through droughts, storms, and even banks trying to take the land. He thought of his father, who once told him, "This land is your backbone, Jacob. Never let anyone put chains around it." Jacob slammed his fist on the table. "They think they can fence me in like cattle? Not on my watch." And then, his eyes landed on the HOA's gate in the distance. A smile spread across his face. "If they want a gate, I'll give them a gate." Jacob pulled out old maps, deeds, and surveys his family had kept for decades. Every line confirmed the truth. The road they fenced off was still his land, which meant legally he controlled it. He grabbed his notebook and began sketching. If they wanted to make his driveway a point of control, fine. He'd turn it into something else, a business. They like rules? Let's see how they handle. "Mine," he muttered, chuckling to himself. By the time the sun rose, Jacob had the entire plan ready in his head. He wasn't going to fight the HOA with fists or lawyers. He was going to fight them with creativity. The next week, Jacob worked tirelessly. Using old lumber, tin roofing, and a fresh coat of paint, he built a small wooden booth right next to the HOA's gate. He wired in cameras, bolted a heavy barrier across the road, and set up a cash box. Then, in giant bold letters, he hung up a sign. Private Ranch Road, $50 per entry. Neighbors who drove by slowed down, gawking at the booth. Some laughed. Others shook their heads in disbelief, but Jacob just tipped his hat and kept working. When he was done, he stepped back, admired his handiwork, and whispered, "Let's see what they think of this." The very next morning, a line of shiny SUVs piled up at the gate. Their drivers honked impatiently, expecting the road to open as usual. Jacob stepped into his booth, lowered the barrier, and leaned out with a grin. "Morning, folks. That'll be $50 if you'd like to pass through," the crowd gasped. "What?" someone shouted. Karen stormed to the front, her face red. "You can't do this. Open the gate right now." Jacob leaned back lazily. "Ma'am, this is my land. You put up the gate. I put up the price. $50, cash only." Residents behind Karen, late for work, sighed and began pulling out bills. One by one, they handed money to Jacob, who raised the barrier and let them through. By noon, Jacob's cash box was stuffed with bills. Karen's face, however, was purple with rage. Karen couldn't stand the humiliation. She had just paid Jacob $50 to drive down his own road, and now every neighbor was gossiping about it. Her perfect HOA authority was slipping, so she picked up the phone. "Sheriff, this rancher is running an illegal toll booth. He's robbing people." An hour later, a county sheriff's truck pulled up. Karen stood proudly at the gate, pointing at Jacob like she had finally won. But when the sheriff walked over, Jacob calmly handed him a folder. Inside were copies of the land deed, survey maps, and legal documentation. The sheriff skimmed through, then raised his brow at Karen. "Ma'am, the road is on his property. He's not breaking the law. If anything, you're trespassing on his land." Karen's mouth dropped open. The sheriff tipped his hat to Jacob, chuckled, and drove away. Jacob smirked, whispering, "Round one goes to me." Within days, Jacob's toll booth became the talk of the county. Local news vans parked nearby, filming footage of residents, reluctantly paying to pass. Headlines read, "Rancher outsmarts HOA with private toll road." From fences to fees, HOA's plan backfires. Even people from neighboring towns drove out just to see it. Some honked in support, others laughed, as they paid Jacob a few bucks just for the fun of passing through. Jacob didn't mind. He'd sit in his booth, tip his hat, and drop bills into his growing cash box. What started as revenge had turned into a business opportunity. But Karen? Every coin that clinked in that box was another reminder of her failure. That week, Karen called an emergency HOA meeting in the community clubhouse. Dozens of residents gathered, frustrated and angry. "This is unacceptable," Karen shouted. "We can't be extorted like this. We need to sue Jacob, force him to take it down." But the room wasn't on her side. One man stood up. "Karen, we told you fencing him out was a bad idea. Now we're the ones paying for it." Another added, "At least Jacob's road is cheaper than HOA dues. I'd rather give him my money than you." The room erupted in laughter, and Karen's face turned scarlet. For the first time, her iron grip on the HOA was slipping through her fingers. Instead of stopping at the toll booth, Jacob doubled down. He added new features. A bright digital sign displaying toll prices. A small credit card reader for those, without cash. And even a monthly Fast Pass sticker for residents tired of paying daily. Neighbors reluctantly bought the stickers, knowing they had no choice. Some even admitted Jacob's system was more organized than the HOA itself. Every improvement made Jacob grin wider. The more Karen fought, the more money he made. "Funny how fences work both ways," he muttered, counting another stack of bills. Humiliated and furious, Karen finally filed a lawsuit. She dragged Jacob into county court, convinced this was her victory. Standing tall in front of the judge, she yelled, "Your Honor, this man is exploiting our community. He's blocking access and charging us." Jacob calmly placed his thick stack of legal documents on the desk. "Your Honor, this land has been in my family for generations. I own every inch of the road. The HOA built their fence on my property line. I simply added a toll to what was already mine." The judge leaned forward, studied the papers, and then looked directly at Karen. "Ma'am, not only is Jacob within his rights, but your HOA is guilty of illegal encroachment. You owe him damages." The courtroom gasped. Karen's face went pale. "Jacob." He simply smiled. The ruling spread like wildfire. Local newspapers, TV stations, and even national outlets covered the story. HOA ordered to pay rancher after fence disaster. Residents who once feared Karen now openly mocked her. Some neighbors quit the HOA altogether, refusing to pay her dues. Karen herself became a laughingstock. At grocery stores, people whispered. At community events, no one sat near her. Her once proud authority had crumbled into dust. Meanwhile, Jacob's toll booth became a county landmark. Travelers snapped pictures with it, joking about the rancher who beat the HOA. Months later, Jacob stood on his porch at sunset watching cars roll through the toll booth. He didn't even bother manning it anymore. He'd hired a local kid to collect fees. The barn glowed in the fading sunlight, the ranch thriving as always. Jacob's children ran across the fields, laughing, free. He took a deep breath, tipping his hat. "Grandpa, you'd be proud. We stood our ground." The HOA tried to chain him down, but instead, they built the foundation for his greatest victory. His story became a reminder to everyone. When you stand your ground, no fence is strong enough to hold you back.